Marion confirmed, right?
Yeah, he did. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I think he did. Oh, yeah, he confirmed the member calling when you originally said. As far as I know, I heard the conversation. He said yes, and he wrote the date down.
Okay.
But I didn't get anything from, either in writing or verbally from the person I just heard their call.
Okay.
And he said he'd be here.
I might give him just a minute. And you sent Jimmy a message about
Yes,
PowerPoint?
I'm to hear. Hopefully he'll be able to come up with his.
Given that we're waiting anyway,
Okay.
that works out okay.
People watching will just be sending messages going, I don't hear any sound.
Nobody's watching.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
Just by way of explanation, I was talking to Mary Jo. We do expect that Marion Hall will join us. He did confirm the meeting, and we have asked our media specialist, who's arriving now, to set up for. I think Brian prepared a PowerPoint presentation live for you all, so we'll get that all set up before we call the meeting to order and get rolling. So sorry for the delay.
Okay.
PowerPoint and just a PDF on whichever. Funny story, since you're waiting, I handed my assistant a thumb drive. I didn't know if it would be distributed or not, and she said, do you want these pictures of your sister? Still in there? My sister passed
Oh, sure.
2 years ago.
Sure, thank you.
Thumb drive that my other sister gave me that was her liking pictures.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, please don't use that one. Let me get you another. Give me that one again.
You want me to put the screen down, Jimmy?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
The right silver button, press down. Thank you.
I don't think I've wielded that power before. Oh, and then we do have the no conflict statement.
Yes.
Is that anything that requires any action, or that's
Require any
just
action.
something to execute before we, while you're here?
Statute, I actually, Jeff, since there was
Oh, okay, thank you.
one more on there, so you can sign one or sign a number of them. There's a statute in the Economic Development Code that says that members of an Economic Development Commission and members of the council actually will have to certify that they don't have any personal interest in bioplastics.
Oh.
The developer. If you do, you just recuse yourself.
Oh, have we decided who's who?
Don't you need the officers to sign it? Who you don't know?
Yeah, I think, why don't you wait until the,
Yeah, we'll do that first, and then,
yeah.
Well, but it doesn't say it says undersigned members, but the only people that can sign are the officers. So shouldn't it be worded so?
Actually, one of those, I added a member. I didn't realize.
Oh,
there was-
one of them has it, I see.
And you just sign one.
Mine doesn't have it.
if you all sign the same one, then we're,
Just sign the one that has the extra member line on it. Each of you can sign the same one.
okay. Any word yet?
Nothing yet.
Okay. Well, if Marion joins us, great. In the meantime, let's go ahead. I'll call the meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Lawrence Economic Development Commission here on June 20th, 2018. I note that of the 4 commissioners on this commission, 3 are present, and therefore we have a quorum. I think, deviating a little bit from the agenda, since it's not on there, I think the first order of business is to organize the commission by virtue of election of officers, those officers being president, vice president, and secretary. And accordingly, I would accept any nominations for president of the Economic Development Commission at this time.
Would you like to be president?
Well, you're the most experienced,
Okay, I'll take it.
so.
I nominate myself.
Okay. Any other nominations?
Myself,
Okay.
Vice President?
Great. Seeing none, we can go ahead and vote on that. All in favor of electing Elaine Dusinski to serve as president of the Economic Development Commission, you can signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. Nobody. So thank you, Elaine, for serving as president of this commission. I'll now accept nominations for vice president of the commission.
I nominate my partner. Thank you so much.
Okay. Nomination of Elizabeth Chevlin. Anyone else? Great. Let's see. How about I suppose a motion to elect. Oh, we have a nomination. Does that work? I think that works.
Oh, no, personally.
Yeah. Yeah. How about then a vote to select Elizabeth Chevlin as vice president of the Economic Development Commission? All those in favor, you can signify by saying aye. Great. And all opposed? No. Now we need a nomination for secretary of the Economic Development Commission by process of elimination, if nothing else.
Not here.
Well, you are free to nominate. Marion Hall is the 4th member.
Nominate Marion Hall.
Okay.
Secretary.
Yes, I second that.
Noted and seconded. All those in favor of electing Marion Hall as secretary of the Economic Development Commission?
I'll teach you not to be.
However, he's not here to take notes.
Yes. Fortunately, I think we will, this meeting will be recorded and it can be reduced to minutes, and Mary Jo can serve as recording secretary as opposed to the sort of secretary on the, for organizational purposes. So I think we should be good there. So thanks. With that out of the way, we can move to what we've sort of titled here as a staff update, which is really an introduction about the project that brings us all here. Again, this is a commission that doesn't meet regularly, so just by virtue of being able to catch everybody up about the opportunity, the City of Lawrence has been engaged in discussions with a company called Meyer Plastics for some time now about potential relocation of its headquarters, its Indiana headquarters, to a site in Lawrence on East 59th Street that's otherwise been sitting vacant for many years. It's an environmentally impacted site, and so certainly something the city would like to see developed in this fashion. And I believe Brian Bosma, who's of Kroger, Gardis, and Regas, is serving as bond counsel to the city and the Redevelopment Commission in this project, has prepared a PowerPoint presentation that runs through some key details, so I'll let him take you through that.
Thank you, Cam, and thank you, members of the Economic Development Commission. Brian Bosma, I'm the chairman of the Municipal Practice Group with the law firm of Kroger, Gardis, and Regas at 111 Monument Circle, Suite 900 in beautiful downtown Indianapolis, and have worked with the City of Lawrence literally since I graduated from law school in 1984. It was my first assignment, and have had the opportunity to work off and on with the city in a number of different capacities. I was thrilled when Mayor Collier asked me to work with Cam and Jim Higgins of London Witty and the rest of the city team to work on what I consider to be a very significant economic development project to be located here in the city of Lawrence. So Meyer Plastics, LLC, was founded in 1950. It's been located on East 65th Street, just west of US 37, Binford Boulevard in Indianapolis, the city limits of Indianapolis. And it is a plastics manufacturer, has a full line of industrial plastics, fairly high tech, honestly, and they do design, manufacturing, custom molding, variety of fabrication, thermoforming items at their facility in Indianapolis. They also have a smaller facility in Fort Wayne and a smaller facility in Lafayette. That's the president, Mr. Ralph Meyer, who we've been working with, and his team to try to bring the project to Lawrence. So their current headquarters, a little picture of it there, is at 4167 East 65th Street, just west of Binford Boulevard. You've driven by it and haven't noticed it, because I've been driving by it and hadn't noticed it until I started working on this project. They have 68 employees here in Indianapolis and 12 in their other 2 facilities. Their total Indianapolis payroll is about $2.9 million. And their projected company sales, this was a 2017 projection that they met, of $13,654,000. They have 55,500 square feet at that 65th Street location, and their current capacity is 100%. In fact, with discussions with them, it's about 110%. They have to grow, and we're exploring potential sites in Mount Comfort, Indiana, Dublin, Ohio, and the city of Lawrence, and through the good efforts of Mr. Starnes and other members of the city team, subject to approval by you all, further action by the Redevelopment Commission, and approval by the City Council, and we'll go through all those steps so that you understand them. They'll be moving their facility to the site that we'll show you here in a moment. So Mayor Collier approved. We had a long negotiation with these folks. There were just moving parts. It is a brownfield. It needs continued remediation, and there's just a lot of moving parts on it. But we finally signed a term sheet with general terms in May of 2018. So the site, as Cameron said, is on East 59th Street, 10930 East 59th Street. It was a former precision machine facility from the mid-1960s. The buildings were demolished in 2005, and the site has sat vacant since. I've got actually an aerial of it here in a moment. It's been the subject of an Indiana Department of Environmental Management supervised remediation since 1987. One of my partners that specializes in environmental matters has reviewed the file, and Mr. Starnes has had an outside consultant review it as well. The site is composed of 2 parcels that are approximately 14 acres total. I should have probably put the site on this. I'll illustrate this for you in a second. The northern portion of the 14 acres is 9.516 acres. That is where the new building site is going to be. And then there's about 4.6 acres to the south that will be reserved for future development, probably by a third party. I mean, there's no plans for it at this point, but it could be a convenience area, it could be a small shopping mall, it could be industrial, or not industrial, but the commercial buildings. And they plan to invest $10,472,180 in buildings and equipment at this new location. The construction will be a new 109,000, it's double their current size, square foot headquarters. Their research and development and their manufacturing facility will all be located in that large building. And as I said, the 4.6 acres to the south is anticipated for the future. So this is the site. You see the, I can't remember what they call the sport facility there.
Incrediplex.
Now the
Incrediplex. Yeah, thank you. Incrediplex is just to the north. That's Walgreens just to the east. Kroger is in the south east corner here of the picture, and that's the division of the site. The 9.516 acres at the top is what they're going to develop now. The 4.6 acres to the south will be developed in the future. Now, you aren't acting on tax increment in this group. That is for the Redevelopment Commission, but so you understand, we're calling this whole area the Myers Plastic Economic Development Area, all 14 acres. TIF will only be captured in the upper portion. That's what the allocation area will be, the 9 and some acreage to the top. That means in the future, if you want to, again, help finance facilities or infrastructure in the southern portion, that tax increment will be there. Currently, this site is in the Pendleton Pike Economic Development Area, redevelopment area. So it's already a TIF district, essentially, the entire site. The Redevelopment Commission is taking action to remove this site, the entire 14 acres from the Pendleton Pike area, redevelopment area, and creating this new redevelopment or economic development area. That will give it a 25-year life, and also it will allow the funds collected here to be captured solely for this project, and we'll explain how that'll work in a moment. This is their initial concept drawing of what the headquarters will look like. Very attractive building, particularly when you look at this vacant site now, which just really has nothing on it other than a utility building and just some amenities there. So this is the economic impact. Now, your job today is to approve, if you so desire to do so, an economic development loan and financing package for this project. And you have before you a loan agreement. You have a trust indenture that you don't need to know all the details of, but technically you're approving these form documents and transmitting them to the city council for their final approval. We're already working with the city council's lawyer. She's looked through the documents, had a few questions, but the lawyers will work through all those details. But this is the economic impact. And on the back, Exhibit A to the resolution that you have are really your findings that this is a good economic, has a good economic impact for the city of Lawrence. So this is a summary of what is in that report and what we know about the project today. First of all, employment impact. There will be an immediate move of 68 employees to this location. That payroll is about $2.9 million. You know, the experts use a multiplication factor, say for every dollar of payroll, you get, you know, $1.5 is spent in the community. I don't know about that, but certainly those 68 employees are going to have to eat lunch somewhere. They're going to have meetings in the vicinity. They will spend money in the area. They'll probably stop and get their groceries at Kroger since it's so convenient. So there will be a real economic impact here in the community. They intend to, over the next 4 years, increase that payroll by 18 more full-time equivalent employees for an increase of payroll in the area of $757,000. So by 2022, if projections are met, there will be 86 employees at that location with a total payroll of $3.6 million. The real estate investment, that was a $300 real estate purchase, a $300,000 real estate purchase price for the acreage. They intend to construct a $6.5 million facility. That's all in. That's site improvements, probably their architecture fees, et cetera. But the total real estate and building costs will be $6.8 million right in the city of Lawrence. And then they will have depreciable property, and we'll talk about that in a moment, what we're doing with that. As you can capture real estate property for tax increment, you can capture whatever the base is, which right now for that property is 0. There's no improvements there. You can capture the real estate taxes, the real estate property taxes, but you can also capture depreciable property, personal property taxes. And with Mr. Higgins' help, we've made an estimate of what that will generate. We'll talk about that in a moment. So the total depreciable property there is $3.6 million. Actually, some of that may not be depreciable property because it's computers or software at least, but certainly the largest portion of that will be depreciable property that will create personal property taxes that can be captured and applied toward the project. So those are the general economic impacts of the project. Those are all contained in your facts and findings, Exhibit A to the resolution. So the total anticipated project investment here in Lawrence will be $10.4 million. Total employees in Lawrence immediately in 2019 upon construction completion will be 68. That is to move to 86 over the following 3 years. Total payroll in 2019 will be $2.9 million, and that will expand if they add the 18 employees to $3.6 million. And I did get permission from Mr. Meyer to pull some of these pictures off of his website to show what they do there. You see that's a thermoforming on the right where they take a plastic that they create there and form it into whatever's needed. They do a lot of research on plastic materials and their use. They're used in all kinds of projects, everything from automobile to high-tech applications. So the estimated average wage for their new hires is more than $20 an hour, and that's before benefits. So there'll be benefits on top of that as well. Well, my battery is running low here. Hopefully we'll get through it first. Okay. So the Redevelopment Commission is in the process of removing the 14 acres from the Pendleton Pike allocation area, as I indicated, and establishing the entire site as a separate Meyer Plastics economic development area, with the northern portion of that, the 9.5 acre area, being the Myers Plastics allocation area, and that's what you call a place where you capture tax increment. You call it an allocation area. This allows the Meyer TIF to be isolated solely for this proposed transaction and give it a new 25-year established life. And the part of the financing agreement that's before you, I may not say it yet, it kind of occurred to me as we were talking about things, but we've agreed that any excess tax increment will go to pay the loan early and redeem the bonds early. And that's always a decision. Do we want that money now? The city will get it all once the bonds are paid off. So it will go directly to the city. It will continue actually to the Redevelopment Commission, Redevelopment Fund. So the RDC will, in the future, pledge that real and personal property tax increment from the northern portion, 9 acres, to the Economic Development Corporation's taxable economic development revenue bonds. And with Mr. Higgins' magical analysis, we've concluded that, including the capitalized interest, that you cannot pay on a project until it's completed. Thereby, you reserve some of the bond issue to pay that capitalized interest to the bondholders. And we're also paying costs out of the bond issue as well. And when you do all that subtraction, that means $1.8 million plus is loaned to Meyer Plastics pursuant to a loan agreement, the financing agreement that you have in front of you. And all in is $1.8 million to them, but they sign a note for $2.2 million, right? So they pledge to pay the whole amount back. So that is evidenced by what's called a Series 2018 note. It's payable by Meyer Plastics in the full amount of the bonds. And then the loan payments that they are to make under the note are credited by the tax increment calculated in the TIF area. If Mr. Higgins' calculations are perfect and they are projected, they move the equipment that they project to move, they should not have to make any repayment under the note. It should be paid by the tax increment. The good thing about this is, on these deals, the bonds are either purchased by Meyer themselves or, more likely, a financial institution that they have a relationship with. They understand that there's no pledge of the city's faith and credit on this. The city has no obligation to pay other than the tax increment that's collected and any of the proceeds that are in a trust indenture with Huntington National Bank. So there's literally no risk to the city. There's every risk to the purchaser of the bonds, which is going to be the financial institution that loans to Meyer Plastic. So that note can be repaid in full at any time and the bonds redeemed. And as I indicated, the proceed, let's just say the tax increment collected is a whole lot more than what we've projected for whatever reason. Assessment is higher or they have more personal property there. That will go to pay off the note early, and then the moment it's paid and the bonds are redeemed, then the city's Redevelopment Commission begins collecting all of that tax increment and places it in the city's development fund. Okay, the loan is secured by the note, by TIF funds collected, and the bond funds that are held in trust under an indenture with Huntington National Bank. In the event the TIF is insufficient to pay the principal or interest, the developer must make up the difference under the note. And it's possible. It could be, perhaps they don't get all their equipment in there right away, or they don't expand as thoroughly as we think. It's up to them to make up the difference under the note. So there's no obligation for the city to pay other than the TIF that's actually collected in the 9.5 acre Meyer allocation area to the north. And there's no impact on the city's ability to issue other bonds or debt. It's just really it's for the state's purposes, looking at your indebtedness, it doesn't count. There are two other obligations that the Redevelopment Commission is agreeing to as part of the loan agreement. And if you look through it, you may have seen this. They're really taking over the environmental cleanup of the site. We're pretty comfortable with that now. The projected costs are less than of finalizing a no further action letter from the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, are less than the escrowed proceeds, which the city will have access to, $150,000 from the sale of the property. It's being put in an escrow account, and it will be used by the Redevelopment Commission, more likely their consultants, to continue the cleanup of the site. And then the second obligation that the Redevelopment Commission has under the financing agreements is to purchase a 10-year environment, and I don't know if that was the final, it was 10-year last time I heard. It may be 7-year. Cameron's handling the negotiation on that, but it's a environmental liability policy that will cover both the owner of the property and will cover the city, the Economic Development Commission, and the Redevelopment Commission. And there's a one-time premium of that of approximately $100,000. So that will come out of existing redevelopment corporation funds. I'm good with it because it covers the city as well. And this is still a site that requires a cleanup, and most of it looks like it's monitoring, turning in testing results, but there was a little spike in one of the test wells here a quarter or two ago, so it may go on for a little while. And then, as I indicated, the proposed cleanup parameters here have been reviewed by an outside consultant to the RDC and through Mr. Starnes' efforts, and they're pretty comfortable with it. So there'll be action by the EDC, there'll be action by the RDC, and there'll be action by the council. So the EDC, you have before you this afternoon a resolution which provides the following. After you hold a public hearing, which you're going to hold in a minute, Jim and I promise to be quiet, but we have published this in 2 papers 10 days ago, 11 days ago actually, and so this was an opportunity for the public to speak if they didn't like this program. Boy, I sure hope this doesn't punk out. There it goes. Yep.
I texted Jimmy to see if he has a power cord, and I'm just waiting to hear back.
Yeah, my stuff disappeared too.
Well, we pretty much all memorized everything.
You got it all memorized?
And read
This
it.
commission was specifically chosen because they're all
There you go.
quick studies. It's purpose-built for this.
I could keep going here because I've got a fallback. It's much lower tech. So the RDC has the resolution before it. You also have copies of the loan and bond documents that are recommended to the council. They'll be thoroughly vetted and can change right up to the closing, actually, but the forms will be close. Your findings, if you adopt the resolution that's before you, will be that the project benefits the health and welfare of the citizens of the city. And the second one is that it does not adversely impact any existing employers or facilities based on what you have heard, which looks like, we noticed was there. Said if you have a problem, if you could pull that back up for me. Thanks. You also are approving a taxable economic development bond issue in the maximum principal amount of $2.246 million. While technically you're approving it, it's really the city's bond, and it will be approved. The bond resolution that you also have a draft of will be approved ultimately by the city council. You also are approving the loan of the proceeds of the bonds to Meyer Plastics pursuant to the loan agreement. It's also in your materials. And then draft forms of the bond ordinance, the trust indenture, the loan agreement, and the note are all part of your package as well. And what you're doing with the resolution is recommending to the council that they approve all of the foregoing and issue the bonds. It sounds like they're going to. They're taking their time about it, but that's understandable as well. But it looks like we're going to move forward. So then the Redevelopment Commission on May 22nd held a hearing, not a hearing, but a meeting. There we go.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you, sir. Back to the high tech. On the 22nd, the RDC adopted a declaratory resolution This is for creation of the economic development area and the allocation area, right? So what happens is they adopt a declaratory resolution that has to be approved by the Common Council, and we have a resolution by the Common Council that approves that, and technically it's that it complies with the development plans of the city, right? There's a special provision for excluded cities in Marion County that bypasses any type of plan commission, so it goes straight to the council. The RDC also adopted Resolution 5-2018, which approved the remediation agreement. That's the agreement by which the RDC is undertaking the conclusion of the cleanup. And then they will schedule a public hearing to confirm establishment of the economic development area. That is not going to be on July 3rd now. That was the plan when the PowerPoint was created. But because the resolution has to be first adopted by the oddly, the statute says they can't even publish notice of the public hearing until the resolution is approved by the council. So we have to wait. They'll either do so on July 2nd or August 6th, and we'll have the confirmatory hearing after that. Okay, then the council. So before notice of the RDC public hearing, they have to adopt the resolution that says that the plan that the RDC has adopted conforms with the development plans for the city. And the EDC then can execute the financing documents with Meyer. Before you can, the council has to adopt an ordinance approving the loan, the trust indenture, the Series 2018 note, and the bonds. And this actually is for the council, so you have an ordinance on first reading tonight to accomplish this. That's their portion of this, which hopefully will be on July 2nd. Then the council also is receiving for approval your resolution on July 2nd and the financing documents that are there. And it's our hope that they'll move the thing forward on July 2. Probably not going to be on final passage. It'll be on first reading. And then after that, there's a after they finally pass it, which is likely to be August 6th at this point, then there's a 30-day remonstrance period. Done a lot of these, never had a remonstrance filed. It's always possible. So we've scheduled now, tentatively scheduled, not for August 3rd, but for September 7th, a closing on the deal. So again, this was created primarily as a sales mechanism to the council, but it's for you too. If you approve this and move it forward to the council, you'll be attracting a new headquarters, research and development, and manufacturing facility to the city, which is really pretty exciting stuff. You'll attract nearly $9 million in private development funds to the city, in addition to the nearly $1.5 million of tax increment that will be there. You'll eventually bring 86 new workers to the city, and 18 of those will be new jobs. They'll all be new jobs to the city, but 18 of those will be newly created jobs for the greater metropolitan area. The 4.628 acre portion of the new development and TIF options down there will be preserved the way we've structured it. And you'll be rehabilitating a 14-acre vacant parcel to very productive development and use, which is, for me, I guess I get excited about things. It's a pretty exciting development. And then it helps to clean up a long-standing brownfield site that's been in the community here for many years. The plan does not use public funds other than the real and personal taxes that are only created due to the location of the project here. That's kind of the but-for argument for tax increment. And sometimes I don't believe it. This is real. You would not have the funds to fund the financing of this project without its location here, instead of in Mount Comfort or in Dublin, Ohio. So this is a real development that's really coming in utilizing those TIF dollars. The only other expenditure is the $100,000 from the RDC for the insurance, which I think is a good thing for everybody. The loan and the bond does not count against the city's debt limit or impact the city's ability to issue bonds or debt in the future, and the city is not at risk for default under payments on the bonds, as there is no pledge of general taxes. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, or Mr. Starnes can do so as well. We've both been hip deep in this for a little while. So happy to answer any questions you may have. Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask. So, is there a new road that's going to be cut from Sunnyside down to 59th Street?
You took my question.
That's a good question from Mr. Starnes.
A new road that would be a city road that would cut from Sunnyside down
For
to?
them to access this building, because what I saw was it sits behind a sports complex, which has its own road or, driveway. So I'm just, part of this is Sunnyside is pretty terrible because of that train. So I would say it makes a lot of sense to make sure that there's something that goes between those two roads so people can get in and have another way to get out.
Right. And
Or at least perhaps an access road for deliveries and truck traffic.
there will be an internal drive. So I don't think there will be a public road, but there will be a way to accommodate Myers traffic within the site between the two. And I think their zoning commitments require the addition to Sunnyside Road of a passing blister. So that will be slightly widened for cars to go around
A
it.
lot of bad press, though, about traffic on Sunnyside now because of the trains. The trains stop. I mean, all you have to do is go on Next Door Indiana and read all the people who, and so I quit going down Sunnyside. I bypass and go Pendleton Pike when I want to. I'm only bringing it
So
up.
the plan I've seen, off memory, you see the little cutout sort of that dips into the 4-acre portion in the front on Sunnyside. That is their general drive in and out, and then if I recall correctly, in the northern portion, sort of where that utility road is right there, there is a truck access. That would be a truck drive that would go into their delivery.
In there, and actually then loops clear around the other side of the building, so they have a couple of different
I
options.
just wanted to just make sure, as a
That's a good
driver
point.
in Lawrence.
And unfortunately, we can't control the trains.
You have
So
11 signs now that you call.
But remember, you've got 68 to 86 people going to be driving in there
Right.
twice a day. And so you may hear that train complaint a number of times more than now.
right.
Possible to consider an access road that exits onto 59th?
Well, I think that has been considered, and in conjunction with the future commercial development, I think the idea is they would consolidate some of the ingress and egress to the rear of that building with Meyer, given the common ownership. So I think that becomes a possibility a little bit down the road. But they've done their engineering of this site and including some traffic counts, and when they went for rezoning, I think they required that there are some, again, there'd be some enhancement to Sunnyside Road so that there'd be some added benefits to traffic flow. Again, the train is another matter, so that we can't really do anything about at this point, but.
So is there a improved road to the south there, Cameron? I'm not sure. I haven't gone out there to look.
To the south.
To the south of the whole site.
That's 59th.
That's 59th.
59th Street, yes.
Yeah, and what I'm looking, the teeny tiny plan I have here does not show access to 59th Street.
Yeah, I don't think it is in the first phase to add a drive that would go directly to 59th Street. I don't
There's
think
one that kind of loops around the building, as you indicated.
Yeah. So they have some circulation internally and two entrances out onto Sunnyside.
And then they're either seeking or have received rezoning?
Yes, no, it's been approved.
Okay. Did that contain commitments related to?
It contained commitments related to enhancement of Sunnyside Road specifically to accommodate movements around the entrances.
It was pre-approved or approved?
I think it was approved.
Approved.
Again, Meyer applied sort of as an agent of Mitchell Group, the current owner, so I think that enables them to get approval, final approval, but it did come before the council.
Other questions?
Real quickly on the insurance policy, the environmental agreement that we have. So I'm assuming that agreement is pretty detailed in all environmentals. What is the potential financial impact for the city? Did you say 150,000 was already escrowed to cover?
Yes, and the
remediation?
estimates both by Myers a consultant and by the consultant to the city was that cleanup should be completed in the vicinity of $110,000. Was that something like
It's
that?
actually 90.
Went all the way,
90,000, yeah.
and everything in the store is the same.
They
like-
had, well,
like 50
I'm not
years.
sure
The
that they
pictures you see
closed
here
on
from
the sale yet, but the
1970
closing
is the
document
same thing
applied
like it
for
was
an
50
escrow
years ago.
account of $150,000 in it, less anything that they've spent in this regard since the first of the year. Maybe slightly.
Those proceeds are sale proceeds, so not city proceeds. That'll be escrowed. So money that would otherwise, it's transferring from Meyer, the buyer, to Mitchell, the owner. Mitchell's agreed to escrow $150,000 to get the site to closure. City, the RDC, will have access to that money to complete the cleanup, which we think will
That would
cost.
be the cleanup from past deeds, if
Yes.
you will.
From
But any
Precision Machine.
Future deeds, that would be
Right.
Meyer's responsibility.
Yes, yeah. Well, they are so skittish about the environmental area, so I'm sure they're going to.
Yeah, I don't think they're even a small quantity waste generator, so I
Yeah.
don't think they have even RCRA oversight.
That $100,000 policy, you said that just is for a 7-year, covers for 7 years?
It'll be for 10. It'll be for 10, and that's a one-time premium. It guards against third-party claims.
Right.
Yeah, so it'll be.
We anticipate the cleanup to be completed by that 7 to 10 or 10 years.
I think, yes, we anticipate the cleanup to be completed within the next year and a half to 2 years.
And it's really not, I mean, there's a possibility that they might have to remove some soils at some point, but at this point, it's monitoring well, reporting monitoring well results to Indiana Department of Environmental Management, and if those continue to go down for so many quarters in a row, then they give a no further action letter. In fact, they probably were ready for one, but then
You did say it spiked.
there was a spike in one of the south wells.
Yeah, I think just seasonal, that they want to see some additional results, but also I think the other component we anticipate for closure will be an institutional control in the form of a use restriction, a deed restriction recorded on this and the neighboring property that would not allow for production of groundwater.
Okay.
I don't know that zoning would allow you to do anyway, and would probably limit development to commercial or industrial, which is, again, consistent with zoning. So those would be covenants that would run with the land to ensure that institutionally that exposure risk is
It doesn't
controlled.
build a neighborhood on the south 4.6 acres 20 years from now.
Okay. And just one more.
Sure.
So the $2,246,000, I'm sure that was a very complicated calculation that you got to get to that number. That includes the capitalized interest and the issuance, non-issuance cost. So I saw the difference. Is that about $415,000 to cover both pieces? How much for the bond issuance cost from that $415,000?
The cost of issuance is roughly $120,000,
Okay.
we estimate, and then the
the
capitalized
majority of
interest
that.
is $294,
Okay. How much did you say, 100 and,
$120.
most of it is the capital?
Portion of that includes some of the costs of Meyer also.
Right.
Yeah, that's Meyer's cost too.
And then they can use the bond proceeds that pretty, however they like. In fact, they have a lot of professional costs, and they specifically asked for the bond proceeds, the loaned amount, $1.8 million, to be used for their professional fees and site improvements. There's some discussion about whether there be some drainage issues and sewer issues down further.
Yeah, the project will include stormwater improvements under 59th Street. That will be a public improvement that they will do as part of the project to accommodate stormwater flows from the new development, and also will be sized appropriately to accommodate the new commercial development when that comes online. So that'll be part of the project and part of what the proceeds will go toward.
And to address the first part of your question, if it was a question, the calculation to get to 2.2, we took Meyer's numbers, estimated for construction cost, and we backed that down, because that's construction cost. And so with real property improvements, it will never assess for exactly what it costs to build. So we used about 85% of the construction cost to use that for assessed value, for assessing purposes. As far as the new business personal property coming on board, Brian's right. Some of that is not, like fixtures and furniture are not involved in the manufacturing, so we don't capture that. But we only used what Meyer has in their current facility and assumed that property was coming over into the area. So any new equipment
Right.
wouldn't be used, and we factored in a 10% coverage number. So we took current tax rates for pay 18 of the city, and we used a percentage of the business, or the real property, the existing business personal property, and depreciated that business personal property down to the 30% floor,
Okay.
used an average of that, and assumed a 10% coverage factor. So we made sure that the increment being generated, we would have 110% of the debt service.
Okay.
And that's how we came to 2.2.
I knew it wasn't.
So we should have belt, Velcro, and suspenders on this, in that the property should assess higher than what we've estimated. The business personal property investment should be higher, and tax rates over time will grow. So to the extent, as Brian pointed out, they overperform.
Right.
We have more increment accelerates repayment. Faster repayment lowers interest costs, pays down more principal, and this loan gets paid off in less than 20 years.
Thank you for that, Jim.
Yeah. And by point of fact, I think the calculation that led to 2.2, including only the business personal property that they will bring to Lawrence from their Indianapolis site, doesn't account for the fact that they plan to invest, I think, another substantial amount, $4 to $4.5 million in new business personal property that will also be captured and is pledged to repay this. So we do foresee that the loan principal will be paid down quickly,
Okay, good.
more quickly than projected. Yeah.
Any further questions for us? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good, and I think at this time, given that it has been duly noticed in accordance with state law, we could open the public hearing portion with regard to this resolution, and we're now open to hear public testimony and remonstrances, if any, related to the resolution here being considered by the Economic Development Commission related to Meyer Plastics. So the public hearing is open. I've not received any sign-in sheet from the back about any remonstrators. I suppose we could give them a short amount of time here, but I don't have for advance notice that anybody will be here to speak on it. And given that we don't have any public comment, I think we can now close the public hearing and proceed to consideration of what is resolution number 1, 2018, the resolution of the City of Lawrence Economic Development Commission, as you all, providing final approval of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of a loan for certain economic development facilities to be developed by Meyer Plastics LLC in accordance with the prior presentation by Mr. Bosma and Mr. Higgins. And I would entertain a motion to approve that resolution.
Make a motion to approve.
I second that motion.
Thank you. First and second, any discussion about the resolution? Not, I would ask that all those in favor of approval of resolution number 1, 2018, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. Seeing none. Resolution number 1, 2018 is hereby approved. I don't have any other business to come before the commission. I don't see that we have any one from the public here to present any further business, and therefore I think we could entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Great. Those in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
And we are adjourned. Thank you.
I'll sign that form.
Yeah, if I could get